Kings and politics were big during the Middle Ages. Politicians often died when their supporters were split, but sometimes it was just a jealous husband or a lover who had been dumped. During the Middle Ages, murder was just as likely to happen to royalty as to the rest of the population. In fact, they were often even more at risk because there was a lot to gain from overthrowing a king. Many people found out, though, that they had a lot to lose as well.
The two princes in the tower. The two kings are two of the most famous people who died in the Middle Ages. King Edward IV got sick and died in 1483. He was only 12 years old, and his younger brother Richard was only 9 years old. Richard, Duke of Gloucester, King Edward IV's brother, was made Lord Protector because of this. There were plans for Edward V to be crowned king, but the event kept getting pushed back. Last but not least, Richard put off the crown forever and said he was the real king. It was said that both Edward V and his younger brother Richard were not rightful heirs. Because of the marriage contract between Edward IV and Lady Eleanor Butler, the marriage between Edward IV and Elizabeth Woodville was ruled illegal, which led to the claim of illegitimacy. The marriage was not legitimate, so the boys were not allowed to take the throne. Both sons were locked up in the Tower of London after Richard took the throne and became Richard III. There were people who said they saw the boys playing before their uncle became king, but after the summer of 1483, no one saw the young kings again. In July 1483, someone tried to get the boys out of the tower but failed. The princes were never seen or heard from again, and no one knows what happened to them. There have been people over the years who said they were one of the lost princes, but these claims were never proven. Two groups of two unnamed children's bodies have been found. One set was found in the Tower of London under the stairs that lead to the Church of the White Tower. You could find the other set in the grave of Edward IV and Queen Elizabeth Woodville. The bodies have not been checked to see if they belong to the kings. Most people think that the boys were killed by their uncle, and this was also what many people thought at the time.
James I of Scotland. It wasn't easy for James I of Scotland to become king. King Robert III made him heir after his two older brothers died. He was the third son of the king. Because one of the deaths seemed odd, James I was taken to France by boat to keep himself safe. By some strange turn of events, the English took James's ship and held him as a hostage. Robert III was already very sick at the time, and he died soon after hearing that his son had been captured. After that, James's uncle, Robert Stuart, the first Duke of Albany, took the throne. The Duke liked being king and wouldn't pay the British the large amount of money they wanted to get the young ruler back. James I was locked up by King Henry IV for 18 years. There were some good things about James's life. He got a good education and lived like a king. Robert Stuart passed away in 1424, and James's debt was paid. He could finally go back to Scotland. When James I got home, he wanted to get back at the Albany Stuarts, so he put the family's leaders to death. He wanted to stop the greed and corruption that had grown under his uncle's rule and bring Scottish law up to date at the same time. Some people didn't always like what he was doing, which made them look for a way to get rid of the king. A group of Scottish lords attacked James I because they thought he wasn't really king. There was a hole in the king's flat floor that he used to get into the sewers. He got deep into the sewers, but luck would have it that James III had shut them off because he had lost too many tennis balls. They caught up to him in the tunnels and stabbed him to death.
Nicephorus II Phocas. In 953, Nicephorus II Phocas began his job as a military leader, just like his father had done. People in Constantinople liked him because he beat the Arabs, and the Byzantine Emperor Romanus II and his wife, Empress Theophano, were interested in him. Nicephorus II Phocas was known to be religious, ugly, and not interested in women, but he showed himself over and over again as a military leader. When Emperor Romanus II died, his wife was put in charge of her kids, who were only 6 and 3 years old when they were made co-emperors. She looked for someone to protect her kids and herself because she knew there were plans to hurt them. To do this, she called Nicephorus to Constantinople and tried to get him to marry her. He said he would take the crown and rule until her sons were old enough to do so themselves. They got married soon after Nicephorus was crowned king in August 963. People did not like Emperor Nicephorus II. He cut money from the court, the church, and the monasteries while raising taxes to levels that had never been seen before. People stopped liking him because he wouldn't help the poor during several famines. She also turned against Nicephorus because she thought that his brothers were trying to take her son's place as kings. After Nicephorus II fired Theophano from his military job, he went out with John Tzimisces. They planned to kill Nicephorus together. A group of people planning to kill the emperor hid in Theophano's room as women until he went to sleep. Then, she pushed them into the emperor's room, where they killed him by stabbing and beating him. John Tzimisces was made emperor right away, but the religious leaders demanded that he send Theophano into exile. Even though she was sent into exile, her sons did become emperors in the end. King Erik V of Denmark. King Erik V never really held on to his throne. He was only 10 years old when his father was killed, and he took the throne. He ruled with the help of his mother, Queen Dowager Margaret Sambiria, until he was old enough to do it on his own. Making sure her son would stay in power meant she had to fight strong enemies. In 1259, the year her husband died, Chief Jarimar II put together an army and attacked Zealand to test the queen. She was beaten, and later that same year, Chief Jarimar II would also steal from Copenhagen. In order to continue his mission, he got into a fight with a farmer's wife, which made her angry and made his army run home. The queen had to give up some of her holdings and areas because of other rebellions and attacks on the throne, but her son stayed on the throne as he became an adult. Some things are still not clear about how King Erik V died. It is said that there is a group of nobles who would do anything to make the king pay for hurting them or making policy choices they didn't agree with. Some of the main conspirators were Marshal Stig Andersen Vidde and Jacob Nielsen. They paid one of the king's closest friends to tell them where he was so that they could get payback. On November 22nd, 1286, King Erik V and his men came across a church barn in Finderup and took cover there after a long hunt. Assailants dressed up as Franciscan monks and attacked the king while he was sleeping. They cut him up with knives, and the bloody body was found the next morning. The court put the blame on Marshal Stig Andersen Vidde and Count Jacob Nielsen, but it's still not clear who did it. Both guys were arrested, which made Stig turn to piracy. Alboin. Alboin was a trial warrior in the 6th century, but his pride and cruelty brought him down. In 560, he became king of the Lombards and became very powerful. People from the Lombards and the Gepids often fought, and it was during Alboin's rule that he wanted to get rid of the Gepids for good. In order to reach his goal, he made deals with the Avars and the Byzantine Empire. King Cunimund led the Gepids in an attack on the Lombards in the year 567. They were able to beat the Gepids with King Alboin's help. That fight is where King Cunimund died. He was killed by either King Alboin or the Avar King Bayan I. King Cunimund was killed, and King Alboin wore a wine cup made from his skull on his belt and drank from it all the time. As part of their deal to form an alliance with the Avars, the latter would take control of the Gepid lands. This made the stronger Avars a threat to King Alboin. He married Rosamund, King Cunimund's daughter, to try to get the Gepids to side with him, but the Gepids were too far away to be of much help, so King Alboin had to send his people to Italy. Most of Italy was his between 569 and 572, and he set about making a kingdom for himself and his wife to rule. His murder would happen because he was mean to his wife. He was known to beat her and treat her badly, but when he asked her to drink happily with her father and gave her wine from a cup made from her father's skull, that was the last straw. From then on, she planned to kill him. They forced the king's security to help them by threatening him with harm, along with Alboin's foster brother Helmechis. Then, while the king slept one night, Helmechis and the guard killed King Alboin by beating him. Canute IV of Denmark. During the 1200s, Canute IV was king of Denmark. He took over for his bigger brother Harald Hen. He was the son of King Svein II Erstrithson. He became king of Denmark in 1080 and worked to strengthen the throne. He was a devout Roman Catholic.
It was during his rule that the church was given more power and people were required to honor church holidays. For King Canute IV, supporting the church was not only the right thing to do because of his faith, but it was also a good way to get a useful friend. He thought that having a strong connection to the church would help him fight the aristocracy by building a strong and organized monarchy. Several members of the elite were angry with him because he wanted to change things, but he wasn't just interested in Denmark. In 1085, he said that he was entitled to the English throne. He put together a big attack fleet so that he could take the English throne by force. But just as he was about to leave for England, the Copts in his home country caught up with him. The nobles rose up against him because they didn't like how he handled taxes. King Canute IV ran away from the rebels and hid at Odense's St. Albans Church. Here is where the rebels, led by his own brother Prince Olaf, caught up with him and killed him along with the rest of the royal party. He was buried at St. Albans, and many wonders were said to have happened at his grave. He was made a saint and named the patron saint of Denmark in 1101. Queen Galswintha and King Chilperic. Queen Galswintha was a well-connected woman. The Visigothic king of Spain, Athanagild, was her father. Brunhilde, Queen of Austrasia, was her sister. She was married to Chilperic I, King of Neustria, and had children of her own. In 567, they got married. Fredegund, Chilperic's lover, gets angry when Queen Galswintha does something bad. Because Fredegund wanted to be more than just a lover, he planned how to become Queen Galswintha. Fredegund was born into a poor family and worked as a helper for Chilperic's first wife, Audovera. At that point, Chilperic became interested in her and made her his wife. He helped him get a divorce from his first wife. Fredegund was upset that Chilperic didn't marry her. He instead married Galswintha. Fredegund killed her by strangling her in 568, which probably ended Chilperic's plans to marry a third woman who wasn't Fredegund. In this case, Fredegund married Chilperic for the third time and became queen. Being in charge of Fredegund meant that many people died, and she had Chilperic under her control. Brunhilde could not accept that her sister had died, and the two countries fought for 40 years. Chilperic I wouldn't get away without getting hurt either. In 584, he was coming back from a hunting trip when he was killed by an unknown attacker. Some people think that Fredegund also caused this death, but this isn't certain because Chilperic I was a very disliked king, and many people would have liked to see him go.